What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another one. And the offseason is here. We already know this. We're already done with free agency. We're already done with the draft. But we are entering probably the most exciting part of the offseason, and that is mini camp, training camp. And we're already amongst ourselves in OTA. So with all of this happening, with all these practices already underway and us just getting more in-depth as each practice occurs, I thought it would be a good time to make a video on, hey, some of our yearly camp battles. Who are some guys to watch? What are the positions to watch? And what are my potential outcomes and thoughts on this? We're going to talk about in today's video. Now, the top one here is the obvious one, the one you probably already saw coming, and the first one you thought when you read the title of this video. That's quarterbacks. Most importantly, Cam Newton and Mac Jones. But I would say the secret one to watch is Jarrett Stidham. What are the Patriots going to do with Jarrett Stidham? That is going to add more depth to this question mark and competition at quarterback for the Patriots this offseason. Currently, New England has 4 quarterbacks. They never, ever carry more than 3. With that being said, one of these guys is likely out the door. Cam Newton's probably going to start the season. Mac Jones is already locked in as the potential future guy, and the guy who we're even talking about could be potentially starting at some point this season. That leaves either Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer. Chances are the Patriots want to keep Brian Hoyer around as long as possible, not for who he is as a player, not for depth purposes on their quarterback depth chart, but because he's coaching up the future in Mac Jones. In the end, the Patriots didn't have a guy of Mac Jones' caliber who is really going to help mentor him in this extremely hard system offensively that the Patriots have. Cam Newton can teach him that, mental toughness side, can teach him the competitiveness side. But from the pure system standpoint of Mac Jones, it's very different than Cam Newton, but it fits in with the Jarrett Stidham and it fits in with a Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is a veteran in this league. I believe he's been in the league for over 10 seasons now. A good portion of them which have been with the Patriots. So Brian Hoyer knows the system like the back of his hand. And in the end, Jarrett Stidham only got here about 2 years ago and had one actual offseason. He's not in a position to be able to mentor. So that brings up the question on what will the team do with Jarrett Stidham? Do they try to get him some more looks and drive up that, trade value? Or, do they give him a shot and see if he can add some depth to the Patriots quarterback room also? But really the realm of the competition is really between Cam Newton and Mac Jones if you're looking for that starting job. Now, me personally, I believe that Cam Newton is going to start week 1 unless he literally can just not throw the ball. And because of his injury, that makes things even more interesting with Mac Jones. And is he going to start this season? Is he going to even start week 1? We know that the Patriots are really trying to further the development of Mac Jones as quickly as possible. The things that they are doing with Mac Jones are things that we have not seen with other quarterbacks. They're giving him reps with the starters. They're having him come in early, kind of having him stay a little bit later, having him study some film, and they have him working one-on-one a lot with the receivers. But most importantly, they have him working one-on-one with Josh McDaniels a lot. Now, I truly, again, believe that Belichick will roll with Cam Newton for at least week 1, but, if Mac Jones just develops more and more and more as each day goes on, and he just looks more impressive each day, then we have an actual question mark on our hands, along with Jarrett Stidham. If he can perform as he did the second day that was open to the media for OTAs, then that brings up some real question marks for New England also. Now, the next one here is wide receiver. This seems to be a battle every single year, probably for the majority of NFL teams, and understandably so. Over the last several years, the wide receiver core for the Patriots has been more than lackluster, but this season, Belichick decided to go out and spend some money. You have the emergence of Jacoby Myers, but you also have the additions of Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. Now, obviously, all those guys are going to make the roster, but the question mark comes in on, hey, who's your number 1 guy? Who's your number 2? Who's your number 3? Who's your number 4? Now, I definitely believe that Nelson Aguilar is going to be pinned in as that number 1 wide receiver, especially a guy on the outside. I think number 2 is where the questions are going to arise between Jacoby Myers or Kendrick Bourne. I think both are similar in playing style. Jacoby Myers does have the edge over Kendrick Bourne just in the sense of, hey, he's been in the system a little longer, but Kendrick Bourne also, he's been in the league for a few years now. He knows what's expected. He's been with another team, so coming to another team kind of helps with his repertoire. And we already know that Kendrick Bourne is fitting in perfectly with this system. So, hey, who's that number 2 guy? We're just going to have to see. But another battle opposite aside of number 2 is going to kind of be that last spot for the Patriots wide receivers. Who is that going to go to? And as of right now, at this current time, there could be more additions, but looking at the depth chart right now, there's kind of a 3-way run that I'm looking at for the final receiver to make this roster, and that's kind of going to be more of the speedster, okay? Because I think there's 3 guys here who aren't exactly elite enough to be able to say that they're roster locks, but definitely have the ability to push and make the final roster, and they all bring that same playing style as a speedster, as a burner. That is going to be Isaiah Zuber, rookie Trey Nixon, and recent addition Marvin Hall. Marvin Hall is going to come in and be a guy who has a lot of experience in the NFL. He's been with several different teams, and like I said, he kind of brings that dynamic, like all these other guys, of speed, which is something that the Patriots could use. Has some experience in the slot, has some experience on the outside, but just the experience in general in the NFL is going to put him on top of these 2 other guys. Now, Isaiah Zuber is the guy that the Patriots picked up as a UDFA after the conclusion of the 2020 draft. He ended up back on the Patriots practice squad this past season, got elevated to the Patriots active roster, played a few games, got in with some special teams, got in on some of the Patriots trick plays, and even got in a little bit in the Patriots passing game. He is somebody unlike Trey Nixon and unlike Marvin Hall, who does have already a year of experience in the Patriots system, which could go a long way. And then lastly is Trey Nixon. Can Trey Nixon come in and make a big impact? It's going to be really, really hard. He's definitely the guy on the outside looking in to beat out a veteran in Marvin Hall and to beat out even a guy who has more experience over you in Isaiah Zuber is going to be a really tough task. But if he can show that he has good hands, he has good burst, and can be a downfield threat, then maybe he can make the Patriots' final roster. Now, next up is a little bit of a broad one, but I would say just the secondary in general. It's not just corners, it's not just safety, but it's the secondary in general. And it's more so, hey, which guys are going to play where? Where's Adrian Phillips going to play? Where's Kyle Duggar going to play? Where's Jalen Mills going to play? I think the Patriots have really good additions to their secondary, which was already a great secondary for the last several years. But although they already have the guys, doesn't necessarily mean that we know where they're going to play. Now, guys like Adrian Phillips, guys like Kyle Duggar, we did get to see what they brought to the team in 2020, but that was a pandemic-filled season with no offseason. You had guys who had to play in, different positions in different areas along the defensive alignments to kind of compensate for guys that left in free agency or guys that left via opt-outs. You can even add injuries on top of that. Is Adrian Phillips going to be a guy that, goes up against tight ends? Plays more hybrid linebacker close to the line of scrimmage like he did a lot in 2020? Or is he going to serve more of that kind of second free safety role next to Devin McCourty? Because the Patriots really, really missed that role since Daron Harmon left and surely have not found that replacement. You then have Kyle Duggar, who looked spectacular in 2020, and we're expecting bigger things in 2021. It's going to be really, really interesting to see where he plays. Does he kind of take over that Pat Chun role and continue to play where he did in 2020, more so in the slot, going up against, bigger running backs out of the backfield to cover tight ends, or does he kind of go back to where he was in college, and is he going to serve as that free safety next to Devin McCourty? The Patriots also have Jalen Mills, who they signed in free agency, I believe a 4-year deal, so they clearly think that he's going to be in their future one way or another. What is he going to do? Where is his exact alignment along this defense? That is probably one of the most exciting things for me to see as training camp and mini camp come along. Jalen Mills has played a lot of corner, outside corner more specifically, but he's played everywhere. Okay, he's played against the slot. He's played on the outside. He's played in the box. He's played free safety. He's played every single alignment in the secondary that you could possibly play. This past year with the Eagles, though, is where they saw an improvement from Jalen Mills once he switched to safety. So where does New England see him? As safety, as corner? It's definitely going to be tough to predict right now where they're going to see him. So this is going to be one of those things where we just have to see once the time comes along. But we do know that from what they're doing in OTAs, they're trying both Kyle Duggar and Jalen Mills all over the defense. To go along with those guys, you also have some question marks about some of these younger guys, right? Miles Bryant is going to be a guy that you either play in the slot, which is where Jonathan Jones plays, or you're going to play him as a safety. You can't play him on the outside. He's way too small. We saw him at safety a little bit in 2020. We know that they like him a lot. We know that he showed some promise, but where exactly is he going to play in a loaded secondary? Those are some question marks that we will also have to see. Especially with the addition of a veteran safety in Adrian Colbert, can he kind of beat out maybe a guy like Miles Bryant, or do the Patriots like Miles Bryant and the potential more than the veteran in Adrian Colbert? Now, one of the big things here is CB3. J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, those guys are already locked in, but Jason McCourty leaves in free agency to go to the Miami Dolphins. That's a really big loss, and I think something people aren't giving enough credit to. Who takes over that role? Is it Michael Jackson? Is it going to be a Jawan Williams? Both guys we have not seen enough from. I would say that, with Jawan Williams, I don't necessarily think he's a bust. He's obviously not been great. At least if he was good enough, he would have been more in the rotation. But also, it's been loaded, so he hasn't been able to get those snaps. But they've tried him at they've tried him at safety, against tight ends and running back side of the backfield. They've tried him at outside cornerback. Where exactly do they see him, and who is going to win that race of CB3? Now, next up here is another loaded position for the Patriots, which is why it becomes a camp battle, and that's linebacker. Okay, last year the Patriots had a very depleted group of linebackers. They really only had a couple. Each guy, you knew where they were going to play because there was very, very few of them. But a year later, the Patriots have a lot of guys. Jawan Bentley, Josh Uche, Anthony Jennings, Hightower's coming back, Chase Winovich we could see a little bit more at classic linebacker rather than DE. Terez Hall, who the Patriots liked, and he's somebody that got, a good amount of time last year with the depleted linebacker core. Raekwon McMillan, who was another addition. Kyle Van Noy, he's back. And then not to mention these safeties who were playing very close to the line of scrimmage in 2020, playing hybrid linebacker. Now, obviously, when Hightower comes back, he immediately takes that number one spot. He's the leader for the Patriots. He's not going anywhere. But you got to think that, Jawan Bentley, because of what he's done the past couple of seasons, especially last season, that he's kind of stapled in there too. Maybe he's a potential trade candidate. It might be a little bit of a push, but, with such a crowded room, Belichick isn't going to be able to roll with all of these guys. So right at the trade deadline, like we've seen several times from Belichick in the past, you might see some unexpected trades because a guy like Jawan Bentley definitely does have some trade value. You already know that the Patriots, though, are not going to straight up cut Jawan Bentley. So for now, we're just going to say he makes the team rather than just making a prediction that he gets traded. So Matt Judon, obviously a lock. Jawan Bentley, obviously a lock. Kyle Van Noy, obviously a lock. Dante Hightower, obviously a lock. That is already 4 linebackers. Obviously, Josh Uche is also a lock. Will they consider him a linebacker or a DE? From what I'm hearing, probably more of a linebacker. So let's even say that 5 guys straight off the bat, 4 linebackers is a lock. Chase Winovich is also either going to get traded or he's going to make the team. I would put more him as DE, though, rather than linebacker. I think they're going to try Uche more at linebacker rather than Winovich. I think that he's going to be more of that DE rather than linebacker. But then you have, again, guys like Terez Hall, Raekwon McMillan, Anthony Jennings, who is a guy I also don't see going anywhere. I would say he's a lock. Harvey Longkey. I mean, in order for guys to make this final roster, they're going to have to do several different things. So I think you have to look at this depth chart that the Patriots have and be like, okay, which of these guys are elite versus which guys can do multiple different things in multiple different areas. Chances are, if you're getting run over, you're struggling, or you're just a one-dimensional player, those are the guys that are likely going to be kicked to the curb. But at the same time, right now, we're just doing predictions. Once training camp comes along, we have seen guys several times where players we expect to perform good don't perform well, and guys that we don't expect to perform well end up coming out of nowhere and playing extremely well. I think with the preseason also, it's going to help further make that case harder for the Patriots because these guys will actually get their time to be able to shine and show what they have. And then lastly here, just to end it, is the kicker position. There's not too much to talk about this one, but there is still something to talk about. The Patriots have 3 kickers. They didn't sign Nick Folk till later on into the process. So they are not sold on keeping Nick Folk. If they can find that future guy, they would much rather roll with him. But Nick Folk until then is a very good reinsurance policy. Now, I don't believe that Roberto Aguayo is going to essentially make this roster unless he comes out of nowhere, but right now, haven't heard anything from him. I think that right now, the big question mark is Nick Folk and Quinn Nordin, the UDFA that the Patriots got, I believe, from Michigan. Now, Nick Folk has not been at OTAs. Not really much of a surprise here, but has not been there. It has been Roberto Aguayo and Quinn Nordin. And from what the media is saying, Quinn Nordin is a guy to watch. He is someone with a huge leg. He can bomb a field goal from 70 yards easy. But the question mark comes with consistency, and that's the same thing with him in college, was consistency. At the end of the day, you'd rather go with a kicker who can kick it 9 out of 10 times from the 40 than a kicker who can kick from the 70 but can only do it 4 or 5 out of 10 times. Now, the media did say that they aren't exactly sure if Quinn Nordin's kicks were going in, but either way, they were very close. And I feel like we have seen this situation before. Not with kicker, but still special teams with punter. With Ryan Allen and Jake Bailey. Yeah, it's a little bit different because Jake Bailey was drafted in the 5th. Quinn Nordin is a late UDFA pickup, but a guy who can boom the ball versus a guy who's the starter and hasn't been at these workouts. As long as Quinn Nordin can be accurate with the football, I definitely think that Nick Folk, Quinn Nordin, that is a competition to watch at the kicker position. But these are some battles that I personally believe that we should be watching for this offseason, for training camp, the remainder of OTAs, and also mini camp, which is coming up next week. Before we end this video off, though, do want to talk about the sponsors of us here at Patriots Global, betonline.ag. Now, BetOnline has the fastest and the easiest ways to bet on all of your sports action. Football might be over, but NBA, college basketball, and the NHL are a full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline also has you covered for all of the new scores and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's completely free to sign up. All you guys got to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in with the action, and don't forget to use that promo code CLNS50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. But y'all, I believe that is what? 4? I believe that's 4 training camp battles, 4 or 5 to watch here as we enter, again, more competitive level in mini camp and training camp. What are your guys' thoughts, though? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video and subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. Like always, though, I appreciate you guys for watching. Check you in the next one. Go Pats.
In Astro World.